The station called Haven's Reach floated quietly in the darkness of space. It had been there for almost 70 years, growing slowly from a small outpost into a thriving home for thousands. The station orbited a moon rich with minerals and rare elements. Ships came from all over the galaxy to trade here. Different species lived together in peace. The insectoid Valorians worked in the farms. The amphibious Drexians ran the markets, and among them lived a small group of humans, barely 300 people. Ambassador Tae Yang stood in his small apartment and looked out at the stars. He was old now, his hair completely white. He had come to Haven's Reach 40 years ago as a young diplomat. Back then, humans were new to this part of space. Most aliens did not trust them, but Tae Yang had worked hard to build friendships. Now humans were accepted here, even if they were few in number. The communication panel on his wall suddenly lit up with an emergency signal. Tae Yang's heart sank. He had seen these signals before, but never so many at once. Station after station was sending distress calls. The messages were all similar. The Krell Empire was attacking. The Krell were coming. Dr. Sumin rushed into the council chamber where all the species leaders were gathering. She was a medical researcher who had lived on Haven's Reach for 10 years. She studied how different alien biologies worked together. Now she studied the fear on everyone's faces. The Valorian hive speaker clicked its mandibles nervously. The Drexian trademaster's skin had turned dark blue, a sign of deep worry. The station commander, a tall Valorian named Zilth, activated the main display. Images appeared showing destroyed stations, burning ships, Krell warships shaped like giant blades cutting through space. The Krell Empire had been quiet for decades. Everyone thought they had stopped expanding. Everyone was wrong. The Krell are moving through the frontier territories, Zilth said, her translator device making her clicking sounds into words everyone could understand. 12 stations have fallen in the past week. They are not negotiating. They are not taking prisoners. They destroy or enslave. The Drexian trademaster raised one webbed hand. We should evacuate immediately. Load the ships and flee deeper into civilized space. And go where? Another voice asked. Every station in this region will be a target. The Krell want the resources. They want the territory. Running just delays the inevitable. Ambassador Tae Yang stood slowly. His old bones ached, but his voice was strong. We should send a distress call to human space. Our military can help. Several aliens turned to look at him, some with pity, some with confusion. The Drexian trademaster made a gurgling sound that was almost a laugh. No offense, Ambassador, but humans are far away. Your military strength is unknown to most of us. We need help now, not in months when your ships might arrive. If they come at all, someone muttered. Tae Yang wanted to argue, but he understood their doubt. Humans were still newcomers to this region. They had not fought any major wars here. Most species knew humans as traders, explorers, and diplomats. Not as warriors, not as saviors, the council argued for hours. Some wanted to surrender immediately and hope for mercy. Others wanted to fight with their limited defenses. A few wanted to run. No one could agree. Finally, as the meeting broke up in confusion and fear, Tae Yang walked slowly back to his quarters. Dr. Sumin caught up with him in the corridor. Do you really think they would come? The humans? Tae Yang nodded. Yes, I know my people. We do not abandon our own. There are only 300 humans on this station, Ambassador. Would Earth really risk a war for 300 people? The old diplomat stopped walking and looked at her with tired eyes. You have been away from human space for a long time, Dr. Sumin. You have forgotten something important. It is not about the number. It is about the principle. No human is beyond reach. No cry for help goes unanswered. That is who we are. 3 days later, the Krell arrived. Their ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. 6 massive warships, each one larger than Haven's Reach itself. The station's sensors screamed warnings. The small defense platforms designed to fight off pirates tried to respond. The Krell destroyed them in less than 5 minutes. The Krell commander's face appeared on every screen in the station. He was a towering reptilian creature with scales like black armor. His eyes were cold and yellow. Inhabitants of Haven's Reach, you have 48 hours to surrender unconditionally. Open your docks. Disarm your population. Prepare to serve the Krell Empire. If you resist, you will be exterminated. There will be no negotiation. There will be no mercy. The screen went black. Panic spread through the station like fire. People ran through the corridors. Some tried to board ships, but the Krell had already surrounded the station. No one could leave. Parents held their children. The Valorians huddled in their communal chambers. The Drexians sealed themselves in their water tanks. Everyone waited for the end. Dr. Suman did not wait. She went deep into the maintenance levels of the station, places where almost no one went. She found an old human emergency beacon, installed decades ago when the first humans arrived. It was supposed to send a signal all the way back to human space. But it was old. It might not work. And even if it did, would anyone hear it? Would anyone come? She activated the beacon anyway. A small light turned green. The signal was transmitting. Suman sat in the dark maintenance tunnel and cried, not from fear, but from the terrible uncertainty of hope. Ambassador Tai Yang stood at his window again, watching the Krell ship circle the station. He had lived a long life. He had seen humanity grow from a single planet to a presence among the stars. He had worked for peace and understanding. Now at the end, he could only hope that someone somewhere had heard their call for help. He pressed his hand against the cold glass and whispered to the darkness, "Please, someone come, anyone." Far away beyond the edge of known space, in the depths where no light reached, something heard. Something was already moving. The darkness was not empty. Help was coming. But would it arrive in time? The 48 hours began to count down. Haven's Reach held its breath and waited for either salvation or doom. Admiral Ji-Wan stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched her tactical display. They were now deep in Krell-controlled space. Every system they passed could have patrols. Every moon could hide enemy ships. The fleet moved in complete silence, all non-essential systems powered down. They were ghosts in the darkness. "Contact," Lieutenant Young-Soo said quietly. "Krell Patrol, 3 ships. Light cruisers. They have not detected us yet." Captain Dae-hyun studied the enemy formation. "They are moving on a standard patrol route. If we let them pass, they will be behind us. If we engage, we risk alerting other Krell forces. Can we avoid them?" Ji-Won asked. "Not without adding 6 hours to our journey," Dae-hyun replied. "We are already running behind schedule." Ji-Won made her decision quickly. "We eliminate them quietly." Dae-hyun prepped the stealth teams. The human ships moved closer, still hidden by their advanced stealth systems. When they were in range, the destroyers launched small attack craft. These were specialized vessels, no larger than fighters, equipped with precision weapons. Sergeant Bora led the operation. She was a Special Forces soldier who had trained for exactly this kind of mission. Bora's team approached the Krell cruisers in complete radio silence. They matched velocity with the enemy ships. Then on Bora's signal they fired. Magnetic charges attached to the Krell hulls. The charges were not explosives. They were electromagnetic pulse weapons designed to disable systems without destroying the ships. The Krell cruisers went dark. Their engines stopped. Their communications failed. Inside, the alien crews would be scrambling, thinking their ships had suffered technical malfunctions. By the time they realized the truth, it would be too late. Bora's team attached additional charges. These were explosives, set on timers. The attack craft retreated to safe distance. 10 minutes later, the charges detonated. The Krell cruisers broke apart silently in the void. No distress calls. No warning sent. Just debris that would not be found for days. "Clean elimination," Dae-hyun reported. "No alerts detected." The human fleet continued forward. Over the next 3 days, they eliminated 2 more patrol groups using the same tactics. Each time they made the destruction look like accidents. Reactor failures, navigation errors. Space was dangerous and the Krell would not suspect an attack immediately. On Haven's Reach, Dr. Suman worked with the growing resistance. The Valorian hive speaker Zilth had joined them after watching Krell soldiers kill 3 of her hive mates for working too slowly. Zilth brought something valuable to the resistance. The Valorians had been quietly mapping Krell ship movements, guard rotations, and patrol patterns. It was information the hive mind shared among all Valorians, but they had hidden it from their captors. "Why did you not share this before?" Suman asked. Zilth's mandibles clicked sadly. "We thought cooperation would save us. We were wrong. The Krell do not value cooperation. They value only strength." Together they began planning a coordinated uprising. The resistance now included humans, Valorians, Drexians, and members of a dozen other species. They were all weak individually, but together they might have a chance, if the rescue fleet arrived. If they could survive that long. The countdown continued. 3 days until execution. 3 days until half the station died. Suman worked in the medical bay, one of the few places where prisoners had limited freedom to move. She treated injuries and sicknesses while secretly coordinating the resistance. Young engineer Jae-won had created a network of hidden communicators using scavenged parts. Messages could be passed throughout the station without Krell detection. A new message came through. It was from Lieutenant Young-soo on the approaching fleet. He had managed to hack into local Krell communications using captured equipment from one of the destroyed patrol ships. The message was brief but carried enormous weight. Resistance leader, this is human fleet, arriving in 4 days. Can you delay execution? Need extra time to position forces, 4 days. The execution was in 3. Suman's hands shook as she typed her response. We'll try. Cannot guarantee success. Station defense is minimal. Krell have 17 ships in orbit. Population weakened. We will do what we can. She gathered the resistance leaders in a hidden chamber deep in the station's lower levels. The Valorian Zilth, the Drexian mechanic named Toth, the human engineer Jae-won, others who had proven trustworthy. We need to delay the execution, Suman said. The rescue fleet needs more time. How do we delay it? Toth asked. His skin had turned pale green with stress. Overlord Vrax has already selected the victims. The plaza is prepared. The Krell troops are excited for the blood ceremony. Jae-won spoke up. We sabotage the plaza. Make it structurally unsafe. They will need to postpone while repairs happen. They will just execute people somewhere else, Zilth clicked. Then we create multiple problems, Suman said. Life support failures in the prison sections. Power outages in critical areas. Equipment malfunctions. We make the Krell so busy dealing with station problems that they have to delay their ceremony. It was risky. If the sabotage was too obvious, the Krell would simply kill everyone immediately. But if it looked like the old station was breaking down under heavy use, they might postpone to ensure their mining equipment could function properly. The resistance split into teams. Each team took a different objective. Jae-won's group would target the power distribution network. Zilth's Valorians would contaminate the water recycling systems. Toth and the Drexians would disable docking clamps, making it harder to bring in the mining ships. Suman would trigger false medical emergencies that would require Krell attention. They struck at midnight station time. Across Haven's Reach, systems began to fail. Lights flickered. Water pressure dropped. Air circulation became irregular. Emergency alarms sounded in a dozen different sections. The Krell soldiers rushed to investigate, pulling guards away from their posts. Overlord Vrax was awakened by his subordinates. He roared with anger as reports came in. The station was falling apart. His officers assured him it was just old human and alien technology, failing under the strain of increased usage. Nothing suspicious, just bad luck and poor maintenance. Fix it, Vrax commanded. I want this station operating at full capacity before the mining ships arrive. The ceremony will wait 3 days until systems are stable. 3 days. The resistance had bought exactly the time needed. But they had also made themselves a target. Vrax ordered increased security. Random searches. Harsh punishments for any sign of resistance. The occupation became a nightmare of violence and fear. People died in the crackdown. 50 prisoners were executed when tools were found hidden in a storage bay. 100 more were beaten for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The resistance members watched and suffered, knowing they had caused this. Knowing it was necessary, hating themselves for it. In space, the human fleet detected the change in Krell activity. Lieutenant Young-soo intercepted the new execution schedule. Admiral, they have postponed. We have the time we need. Admiral Ji-won allowed herself a small moment of relief. Then she focused on the tactical display. 17 Krell warships orbited Haven's Reach. Her fleet had 6 ships. The enemy outnumbered them nearly 3-1. The enemy ships were larger and more heavily armed. On paper, this was an impossible battle. Captain Dae-hyun, present your plan, Ji-won ordered. Dae-hyun activated the main display. It showed a complex 3-dimensional battlefield simulation. The Krell fight in traditional formations. They rely on superior firepower and heavy armor. They expect enemies to engage them directly. We will not do that. His plan unfolded on the screen. The human fighters would deploy in a spread pattern, launching guided weapons platforms throughout the battlefield. These platforms would create overlapping fields of fire. The Krell ships, when they moved to attack, would fly into kill zones. The human capital ships would act as bait, drawing the enemy out of formation. It is a wolf pack strategy. Daehyun explained. We separate their fleet, isolate individual ships, and destroy them piece by piece. Our advantage is speed and coordination. We use it. Commander Hai-In studied the plan with a critical eye. She would be leading the fighter wings, and her people would be the most exposed. This requires perfect timing. If even one element fails, the whole formation collapses. We could lose everything. Yes, Daehyun agreed. But it is our only chance. Direct engagement means certain defeat. Ji-won looked around at her officers. She saw fear in their eyes. But she also saw determination. We are not here to win a war. We are here to save lives. We get in, we get our people, we get out. If we can bloody the Krell fleet in the process, that is a bonus. But the mission is rescue. Always remember that. The fleet began final preparations. Engineer Kyung-hoon worked day and night maintaining the stealth systems. Every ship had to remain undetected until the last possible moment. The surprise of their arrival was their greatest weapon. On Haven's Reach, Dr. Suman received one final message from Lieutenant Young-soo. Tomorrow morning, stay safe. Help is coming. She gathered the resistance one last time. Tomorrow everything changes. When the battle starts, we rise. We take the station. We free our people. Are you ready? They were scared. They were exhausted. Many were wounded. But they nodded. They were ready. They had no choice but to be ready. Haven's Reach surrendered before the deadline. There was no choice. The station commander, Zilth, broadcast the message of submission with her voice breaking. The Krell ships moved closer, their docking clamps attached to the station like the jaws of metal beasts. Soldiers poured through the airlocks. The Krell soldiers were huge, towering over most species. Their black scales were like natural armor. They carried weapons that could burn through walls. They moved through the station, dividing the population into groups. Strong workers were taken for labor. Skilled technicians were assigned to maintain Krell equipment. The weak, the old, and the sick were herded into sealed sections of the station. Ambassador Tae-yang was brought before the Krell commander, Overlord Vrax. The massive alien sat on a throne made from the melted metal of destroyed ships. His yellow eyes studied the old human with cold amusement. You are the human diplomat, Vrax said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. Tell me about your military. How many ships does Earth have in this region? Tae-yang stood as straight as his old body would allow. I am a diplomat, not a military officer. I do not have that information. Vrax's clawed hand moved faster than sight. It struck Tae-yang across the face, sending the old man sprawling. Blood ran from his mouth. 2 Krell soldiers lifted him back to his feet. Tell me, Vrax repeated. No, Tae-yang said quietly. Vrax stood and walked to the window overlooking the station's main plaza. Bring the others. They dragged 50 humans into the plaza below. Men, women, children, all the humans they could find in that section. Tae-yang was forced to watch as Vrax gave the order. Energy weapons fired. The screams lasted only seconds. The plaza fell silent. Vrax turned back to Tae-yang. Tell me about your military. The old ambassador looked at the bodies below. Tears ran down his face, but his voice was steady. I told you. I do not know. But I will tell you something else. You have made a terrible mistake. When humanity learns what you have done here, they will come, and you will regret this day. Vrax laughed, a horrible sound like breaking bones. Let them come. He nodded to his soldiers. Execute this one in the plaza. Make sure everyone sees. Dr. Suman watched from a hiding place in the ventilation system. She saw them drag Ambassador Tae-yang to the plaza. She saw him kneel. She saw the weapon rise. She closed her eyes but could not block out the sound. When she opened them again, the ambassador was gone. Suman crawled deeper into the maintenance tunnels. She was not alone. Others had gone into hiding. A Valorian worker, 2 Drexian mechanics, a handful of humans who had escaped the initial roundup. They gathered in a forgotten storage bay. We need to fight, one of the humans said. His name was Jae-won, a young engineer who had been on the station for only a year. Fight with what? The Valorian clicked. We have no weapons. They have soldiers and warships. Then we sabotage, Suman said. Small things. Make their occupation difficult. Slow them down. Buy time. Time for what? The Drexian asked. No one is coming to save us. Suman thought about the beacon she had activated. Maybe someone is. Far away in human space, Admiral Ji-won stood in the command center of the human fleet headquarters. She was a career military officer who had served for 30 years. She had fought pirates and explored unknown space. Now she stared at a signal that made her heart pound. "When did this come in?" she asked. Lieutenant Young-Soo, her communications specialist, checked his display. "The beacon activated 6 days ago. It took this long for the signal to reach us. It is from Haven's Reach on the frontier." "I know Haven's Reach," Ji-won said quietly. "My sister visited there once. Said it was peaceful." "How many humans are stationed there?" "About 300, Admiral. Civilians mostly. Researchers, diplomats, traders." Ji-won pulled up the location data. Haven's Reach was far beyond human territory. It would take weeks to get there. And according to the partial data in the signal, the Krell Empire had taken the station. The Krell were not a minor threat. They were a major military power with hundreds of ships. She called an emergency meeting of the Military Council. Officers gathered in the secure briefing room. They reviewed the situation. The debates began immediately. "We cannot commit fleet resources for one small station," one admiral argued. "It is beyond our territory. The political risk alone would be enormous." "Those are human lives," Captain Dae-hyun said. He was Ji-won's second-in-command, a tactical officer known for his careful planning. 300 humans who trusted Earth to protect them. "They chose to go to the frontier," another officer said. "They knew the risks." Admiral Ji-won stood and the room fell silent. "I want to ask everyone here a question. What is the point of our military? Why do we have ships and soldiers?" No one answered immediately. Ji-won continued. "We exist to protect human life. Not just the lives that are convenient. Not just the lives that are close by. All human lives. If we abandon these people, what message does that send? That Earth only protects you if you stay close to home? That some humans are worth saving and others are not? The Krell Empire is massive," someone pointed out. "We could start a war we cannot win. Then we fight carefully," Ji-won said. "This is not an invasion. This is a rescue. We go in fast, extract our people, and leave. The Krell can complain to the Galactic Council all they want. Let them explain why they enslaved a civilian station." The debate continued for hours. Finally, the council voted. The decision was close, but it passed. Admiral Ji-won was authorized to take a strike fleet to Haven's Reach. She had 30 days to plan and execute the rescue. After that, the political situation might make it impossible. Ji-won assembled her fleet. 3 destroyers, 2 carriers, and her flagship, a heavy cruiser called the Indomitable. She handpicked her officers. Captain Dae-hyun would handle tactics. Lieutenant Young-Soo would manage communications and intelligence. Commander Hae-in, the best fighter pilot in the fleet, would lead the carrier wings. They departed human space in complete communications silence. No one outside the military council knew they were coming. The fleet traveled through uncharted space using old maps and careful scanning to avoid Krell patrols. On Haven's Reach, the occupation grew worse. The Krell worked the prisoners 16 hours a day. Food was limited. Medical care was non-existent. People died every day from exhaustion, disease, and casual violence. Dr. Suman's resistance group struck back in small ways. They contaminated fuel supplies. They sabotaged communications equipment. They stole food and medicine and distributed it to the prisoners. It was not much, but it kept hope alive. 3 weeks after the occupation began, Sumin was hiding in a maintenance shaft when her communicator buzzed. It was the old beacon's receiver, something she kept with her always. The display showed a message. A single line of text in encrypted human military code. She translated it with shaking hands. The message said, "Hold on. Cavalry coming. 7 days." Sumin stared at the words. Someone had heard. Someone was coming. She almost could not believe it. She shared the message with the resistance. The news spread carefully, whispered from person to person. The humans on the station began to hope again, but hope came with a price. The Krell were planning something. Sumin's contacts in the maintenance crews reported ships being moved into position. Large mining equipment was arriving. Overlord Vrax was preparing to strip mine the moon, which would destroy the station's orbit. After they took what they wanted, Haven's Reach would be left to drift in space, a tomb for everyone aboard. The execution was scheduled for 5 days from now. Vrax planned to kill half the population as an offering before the mining began. It was a Krell religious tradition, a sacrifice to ensure success. Sumin looked at the countdown on her display. Rescue in 7 days. Execution in 5. They were going to be too late. Unless something changed. Unless a miracle happened. In the darkness of space, Admiral G1's fleet pushed their engines beyond safe limits. They had received the updated intelligence about the execution timeline. They could not be late. They would not be late. All ships, G1 broadcast. Maximum speed. We are going in early. The silence after battle was worse than the noise during it. Haven's Reach floated in space, surrounded by debris fields that had once been ships. Bodies drifted in the void, both human and Krell. The station itself was damaged, scarred by weapons fire and the violence of occupation. But it was whole. It was free. Dr. Sumin stood in the main plaza where Ambassador Taeyang had been executed. The bloodstains were still there on the metal floor. She looked up through the observation dome at the stars beyond. Somewhere in that debris field was Admiral G1, a woman who had crossed the galaxy to save people she never knew. Captain Daehyun's shuttle docked with the station 3 hours after the battle ended. He stepped through the airlock looking exhausted. His uniform was torn and stained. His face showed the marks of someone who had not slept in days. But he stood straight and saluted the waiting crowd. "I am Captain Daehyun, now commanding the Human Relief Fleet. We came as fast as we could. I am sorry we could not come sooner." Sumin walked forward. She had not cried during the occupation. She had not cried during the uprising. But now, seeing this man who had risked everything, the tears came. You came. That is what matters. You came when no one else would. The next days were chaos of a different kind. The human ships docked with the station. Medical teams poured through the airlocks. Commander Heian organized search and rescue operations, looking for survivors in damaged sections. Engineer Kyung-hoon worked with Jae-won to restore critical systems. Lieutenant Young-soo established communications with human space, calling for reinforcements and supplies. The casualties were counted. Of the 300 humans who had lived on Haven's Reach before the Krell came, only 147 had survived. Ambassador Taeyang was dead. So many others. The alien species had suffered worse. The Valorians had lost 40% of their hive. The Drexians lost entire family groups. Other species were nearly extinct. The human fleet had paid a terrible price too. Admiral G1 was gone. 3 destroyers were damaged beyond repair. 412 human military personnel were dead. Hundreds more were wounded. For a rescue mission, it had been catastrophically expensive. On the 3rd day after liberation, they held a memorial service. The station's main plaza was filled with survivors of every species. Human soldiers stood at attention. Dr. Sumin spoke about Ambassador Taeyang, about his dedication to peace and understanding. She spoke about the other humans who had died. Teachers, doctors, engineers, ordinary people who had wanted to build something beautiful on the frontier. Then, Valorian Hive speaker Zilth came forward. Her translator turned her clicking into words everyone could understand. "I must speak truth. Before this, my people did not understand humans. We knew you were new to the stars. We knew you were weak compared to old powers like the Krell. We did not know about your strength." She gestured to the human soldiers. "The Krell are strong because they have powerful weapons and many ships. But you are strong because of something different. You fight for each other. You cross the galaxy for strangers. You sacrifice yourselves for principles. This is a strength the Krell cannot understand. This is a strength that terrifies them." Zilth's mandibles clicked in a pattern that needed no translation. It was respect. It was gratitude. "My hive will remember this. We will tell our children and their children. We will say that when the galaxy abandoned us, when death came in the darkness, humanity answered. You did not ask if we were worth saving. You did not calculate profit or political advantage. You simply came. This is who you are. This is what you taught us." Other species spoke. The Drexian mechanic Toth talked about working with human engineer Jae-won during the resistance. A species whose name could not be pronounced by human mouths spoke about Sergeant Bo-Ra risking her life to free them from Krell prisons. Each testimony was the same. Humans had come. Humans had fought. Humans had not abandoned them. When the memorial ended, Captain Daehyun stood before a wall where they had inscribed the names of the dead. Admiral G1's name was at the top. He pressed his hand against the cold metal and whispered something no one else could hear. Dr. Sumin found him there an hour later. "She saved us all," Sumin said quietly. "Her sacrifice saved 3,000 lives. I know, Daehyun replied, but that does not make it easier. She was my commanding officer, my mentor, my friend. The council was divided on this mission. Half of them did not want to come. Ji-won fought for you. For all of you. She believed some things were worth dying for. What happens now? Soo-min asked. Daehyun looked at her with tired eyes. Now we rebuild. Relief ships are coming from human space. Medical supplies, food, construction materials. We will repair Haven's Reach. We will make it strong again. And the Krell? Will they return? They might try. But we are leaving a garrison. 6 ships will remain here permanently. Haven's Reach is now under official human protection. Anyone who attacks this station attacks Earth itself. The news spread quickly through the station. For the alien species who had lived here, it meant security they had never known. The Valorians began repairing their communal chambers. The Drexians started rebuilding their markets. Life slowly returned to normal, but it was a different normal. Armed human soldiers patrolled the corridors. Human military ships orbited overhead. The frontier was no longer alone. Word of the Battle of Haven's Reach spread across the galaxy. The Galactic Council, which governed the relationships between major powers, called an emergency session. The Krell Empire filed a formal protest. They claimed humans had invaded their territory and destroyed their ships without provocation. Captain Daehyun represented humanity at the hearing. He stood before the Council of Alien Species and listened to the Krell accusations. When it was his turn to speak, his words were simple and direct. The Krell claim we invaded their territory. Let me be clear about what they call their territory. They mean a civilian station they conquered. They mean people they enslaved. They mean 3,000 lives they were prepared to extinguish for profit. If the Krell Empire considers murdered civilians and enslaved populations to be their sovereign territory, then yes, we invaded. And we will invade again. He activated a holographic display showing images from the occupation. Krell soldiers executing prisoners, forced labor, starvation, casual violence. The council members watched in uncomfortable silence. We came to Haven's Reach because our people called for help. Daehyun continued. We came because it was right. We lost an admiral. We lost 400 soldiers. We lost ships and resources. But we saved 3,000 lives. That is the calculation humanity makes. That is the principle we follow. No one is beyond our reach. No cry for help goes unanswered. The Krell representative stood. He was a massive creature, scales gleaming under the council lights. You speak of principles, human. But you have made an enemy of the Krell Empire. We will remember this insult. We will repay it 100 times. Daehyun met the alien's yellow eyes without flinching. You call our defense of the innocent an insult. That tells us everything we need to know about the Krell Empire. Come test our resolve if you dare. Come see what humanity does when you threaten those under our protection. We are not afraid of you. The council session ended without formal resolution. The Krell left in fury, but other species approached the human delegation privately. They asked questions. They requested meetings. They wanted to know more about this young species that fought for strangers. On Haven's Reach, the rebuilding continued. Lieutenant Young-soo established a permanent communications network linking the station to human space. Messages could now travel in hours instead of weeks. Families of the dead received notifications. The survivors could contact Earth. Dr. Soo-min worked with arriving medical teams to treat the wounded and sick. She also began documenting everything that had happened: the occupation, the resistance, the battle, the liberation. She wanted people to remember. Not just humans, but all species. This was the moment everything changed. Commander Hayan trained the station's defenders, teaching them tactics and strategies. Many aliens wanted to learn how humans fought. They wanted to understand the coordination and precision that had defeated a superior Krell fleet. Hayan was patient, explaining that their strength came not from individual skill but from working together, from trusting each other completely. Engineer Kyung-hoon worked with Jae-won and alien technicians to upgrade the station's defenses. They installed better weapons systems, stronger shields, advanced sensors. Haven's Reach would never be helpless again. 6 months after the liberation, the station held a celebration. The repairs were complete. The population had grown as refugees from other occupied territories arrived, hearing that Haven's Reach was safe. The markets were busy again. The Valorian farms were producing food. Children played in the corridors where Krell soldiers had once marched. Captain Dae-hyun walked through the market with Dr. Soo-min. He was preparing to return to human space, his duty here complete. Other officers would command the garrison, but before he left he wanted to see what they had accomplished. "It is beautiful," he said, watching the diverse species trading and talking peacefully. "This is what Ji-won died for. Not just survival, but this, life, hope, future. Will you tell them?" Soo-min asked. "The people back on Earth?" The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Haven's Reach system. For a brief moment, space was still and silent. Then every Krell sensor in the system started screaming. Overlord Vrax was in his command chamber when the alarms went off. He looked at the tactical display with disbelief. 6 human ships. They had actually come. These weak, soft creatures dared to challenge the might of the Krell Empire. His lipless mouth curved into something like a smile. "All ships, battle formation," he commanded. "We will destroy them quickly and use their wreckage to decorate the station. Let this be a lesson to anyone who opposes the Krell." The 17 Krell warships began to move, forming their traditional battle formation. 3 heavy cruisers at the center, flanked by destroyers with lighter ships on the wings. It was a formation designed to overwhelm enemies with concentrated firepower. It had worked in 100 battles. Admiral Ji-won watched the Krell fleet move on her tactical display. "They are doing exactly what we predicted. Commander Hae-in, launch all fighters." The carriers opened their bays. Hundreds of small fighters poured out like angry insects, but they did not charge the enemy. Instead, they scattered in all directions, spreading across the battlefield in a pattern that looked random, but was carefully calculated. Captain Dae-hyun monitored the positioning. Weapon platforms deploying now. Each fighter carried special weapons, not missiles or guns, but small automated platforms equipped with guided munitions. The fighters released these platforms and then continued moving. Within minutes, the space around Haven's Reach was filled with hundreds of these platforms, creating a 3-dimensional minefield. The Krell fleet continued forward, confident in their strength. Overlord Vrax watched the human fighters scatter and laughed. "They are running." Their courage failed. "All ships, pursuit speed. Destroy them!" The Krell warships accelerated, breaking formation slightly to chase the fleeing fighters. That was their first mistake. As they spread out, they entered the kill zones created by the weapon platforms. The platforms activated simultaneously. Guided missiles launched from hundreds of positions, all targeting the Krell ships from multiple angles. The enemy point defense systems tried to respond, but they were overwhelmed. Explosions rippled across Krell hulls. Shields flickered and failed. Direct hits on 9 enemy ships, Lieutenant Young-soo reported. 3 destroyers heavily damaged. 1 cruiser losing power, but the Krell were not helpless. Their heavy weapons fired back, tracking the weapon platforms and destroying them. Their larger ships shrugged off the damage and continued forward. They were hurt but not stopped. Admiral Ji-won nodded to Dae-hyun. Phase 2. The human capital ships, which had been holding position at the edge of the system, suddenly accelerated. But they did not charge straight at the enemy. Instead, they moved in a curved path, targeting the damaged Krell ships. The Indomitable's heavy guns fired, focusing all power on a single wounded destroyer. The Krell ship tried to evade, but it was too slow. The human weapons punched through its weakened shields and tore into the hull. Secondary explosions rippled through the ship. It broke apart, spilling atmosphere and bodies into the void. "First kill confirmed," Dae-hyun said calmly, targeting next wounded vessel. The Krell fleet, enraged by the loss, turned to engage the human capital ships. Overlord Vrax personally commanded his flagship forward. His heavy cruiser was twice the size of the Indomitable and carried enough firepower to crack a planet. He would crush these humans personally. On Haven's Reach, Dr. Soo-min watched the battle through hijacked sensor feeds. The resistance had gathered in hidden positions throughout the station. They saw the human ships fighting against overwhelming odds. They saw the Krell ships moving away from the station to engage the fleet. "Now," Soo-min said into her communicator. "Everyone now." Across the station, the uprising began. In the prison sections, hidden weapons appeared. Pipes sharpened into spears. Tools turned into clubs. The prisoners attacked their guards in coordinated strikes. The Valorians, despite their peaceful nature, fought with precision. Their hive-mind coordination made them deadly when they chose violence. Engineer Jae-won led a team to the power distribution center. They overpowered the Krell guards and seized control. With a few quick commands, they shut down power to the Krell command sections. Emergency lights flickered on. Alarms blared. Sergeant Bora and her Special Forces team had infiltrated the station hours before the battle began, hidden in cargo containers on a supply ship. Now they emerged armed and dangerous. They moved through the station like ghosts, eliminating Krell officers and freeing prisoners. In space, the battle intensified. The Krell heavy cruisers focused their fire on the Indomitable. Admiral Ji-won's flagship shook under the impact. Hull plates buckled. Fires broke out on 3 decks. But Ji-won did not retreat. All power to forward shields, she commanded. Hold course. Draw them in. The Krell ships pursued, hungry for the kill. They did not notice the pattern until it was too late. Commander Hayen's fighter wings had regrouped during the chaos. They were no longer scattered. They had formed into attack formations, hidden among the debris of destroyed platforms. Hayen's voice came over the command channel. All wings weapons free. Target the cruiser engines. The fighters struck like a swarm. They came from above and below, from angles the Krell point defense could not cover. Their weapons were small, barely enough to scratch the cruiser's heavy armor. But they all aimed for the same spots: the engine housings, the maneuvering thrusters, the vulnerable points that kept the massive ships moving. One Krell cruiser lost its main engine. It began to drift, unable to maneuver. The human destroyers converged on it, firing everything they had. The cruiser's shields collapsed. Its hull ruptured. Atmosphere vented into space, carrying Krell soldiers with it. Overlord Vrax roared in fury. He had lost 2 cruisers and 4 destroyers. The humans had lost nothing yet. How was this possible? They were weaker. They were fewer. But they fought like demons. All ships fall back to the station, he ordered. We will use it as a shield. Prepare to execute all prisoners if the humans continue their attack. But as the Krell fleet began to retreat, they found the station was no longer under their control. The resistance had seized critical sections. Krell soldiers were trapped and surrounded. The prisoners they had planned to use as hostages were now armed and fighting back. On the station, Sumin's resistance team reached the main command center. Inside, 6 Krell officers were trying to activate the station's self-destruct sequence. If they could not keep Haven's reach, they would destroy it and everyone on it. Sergeant Bo-Ra and her Marines breached the door with explosive charges. The room filled with smoke and noise. Energy weapons fired. One Marine fell, his armor smoking, but the Special Forces team was trained for exactly this. They moved with lethal efficiency. In 30 seconds, all 6 Krell officers were dead. Jae-won rushed to the command console. They started the destruct sequence. I need to abort it. How long do we have? Bo-Ra asked. 3 minutes. The young engineer's fingers flew across the controls. The Krell security systems fought him at every step. Sweat poured down his face. 2 minutes. 1 minute. 30 seconds. The countdown stopped with 8 seconds remaining. Jae-won collapsed against the console, gasping. We are safe. The station is safe. In space, Admiral Ji-won saw the tactical situation shift. The Krell fleet was in disarray. They had lost 6 ships. The station was in friendly hands, but her own fleet was battered. The Indomitable had taken massive damage. 1 destroyer was venting atmosphere. Casualties were mounting. Overlord Vrax, desperate and humiliated, made his final decision. If he could not win, he would at least deny the humans their victory. He turned his damaged flagship toward Haven's reach and ordered maximum speed. He would ram the station. The impact would destroy everything. Admiral, the Krell flagship is on a collision course with the station, Lieutenant Young-soo reported. Impact in 90 seconds. Ji-won looked at her bridge crew. Young faces. Scared faces. They had all known this mission might cost them their lives. She had hoped it would not come to this. But some prices had to be paid. Helm, intercept course. Put us between that ship and the station. Admiral, our shields are nearly gone. A collision would destroy us, Captain Dae-hyun said. I know, Ji-won replied quietly, but 300 civilians are on that station. We came here to save them. That is what we are going to do. All hands abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. That is an order. Admiral, we will not leave you, Dae-hyun said. Yes, you will. Because when this is over, someone needs to take those people home. Someone needs to tell Earth what happened here. That is you, Captain. Now go. Ji-won sealed the bridge and took manual control. The Indomitable, battered and broken, moved to intercept the Krell flagship. The two ships were on a collision course. Around them, space was filled with debris, burning ships and the flash of ongoing weapons fire. At the last moment, G1 fired every remaining weapon directly into the Krell flagship's bridge. The massive ship shuddered. Its course wavered slightly. Then the two vessels collided. The explosion lit up the system like a new star. When the light faded, both ships were gone. Just expanding clouds of debris and fading energy signatures.